what's up YouTube, and welcome back to our Introduction to Hell Dorado series. So at this point, I think we're ready to set up our introduction game to Hell Dorado. So I figured what we would do is go through our pre-game setup. Then we're going to start putting some terrain on the board, and then we're finally going to get to start to play this game. So what normally happens in a game of Hell Dorado when you're setting it up is you're going to agree upon a point-sized game with your opponent. In general, this is a 200 points, and the writers recommend that you play at 200 points for your games, because that's where they believe the game to be the most balanced. But for the purposes of our demo, we're going to play a smaller game. So we're going to play like right around 100 points, which is what you'll find for most starters. That said, I decided to change some of the standard models that you'll find in starters. I find that a couple of tweaks here and there makes the game a little bit more interesting, and I feel that you can teach basic concepts, cover more concepts doing it this way. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to assemble our two companies for Hell Dorado, and we're going to determine our dominance, because that's going to help with the rest of the game setup. Alright, so first up, I'm going to build a Westerner's crew out of a modified starter box. So I'm going to start with my officer, and I'm going with Francisco Vargas here. So he's in the starter box. I'm going to add an individual, Aiden St. James, who is the sergeant. Then I'm going to add one arquebuser. Arquebuser. I don't know how to say that. But I'm going to add an arquebuser. And the starter box comes with 3, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to replace the other 2 with this model, the Twilight Knight. Now, I realize a lot of people won't have access to the Twilight Knight, but I like to keep her in the games because, 1, she's a mercenary, 2, she's a very fun model, and 3, she's pretty cool in-game, and you can actually demonstrate some cool melee stuff with the Twilight Knight in the game. Alright, so that's going to be the Westerners, and I think I've got a point total here of, let's say, 64, that's going to be 76, and that's going to be 104 points available for the Westerners, and we're going to calculate their command. So 5 points for Vargas, 1 for St. James, and 1 for the Twilight Knight, putting us at a total of 7 for our command. For the demons, I'm going to go with a modified starter set as well. So I'm going with Azalea, the Rebel Angel there. She's 60. Then I'm going to go with a Damned One of Wrath. Always fun to go with the Damned One of Wrath. And then I'm going to add a couple of different models instead of the Damned Ones of Sloth. I'm going to go with a Damned One of Gluttony, because it's just such a funny mechanic, and I highly recommend putting this in your demo if you can fit it. And then finally, I'm going to add the Infernal Horde. So you notice I've got 2 examples of the new card format, and then the other examples are in the old card format. This crew here, this company here totals 74, 91, looks like 106. So pretty close to the point value here. Total command of 6 being from Azalea. So you can see the Westerners are, in this case, the Westerners are dominant. Alright, so I thought I would take a moment to explain the terraforming process in Hell Dorado. I am not going to go into this in terrible detail, but I wanted to highlight it because it is such a cool function of the game. Now, the rulebook tells you for your first few games, don't use the special terrain elements, just use the generic description of terrain elements until you master the core mechanics. Then you might start doing things like the conflict zones and special events and all that sort of stuff. But I wanted to just kind of give you guys an overview of how terraforming works. So once we have the dominant player determined, and we have our battlefield type determined. You can either do that randomly or you can use whatever you have in front of you. For this one, obviously, I'm using a Burning Plains or a standard hell map here. What you're going to do with this blank board is you're going to divide this board into 9 areas of 10 inches by 10 inches. Standard Hell Dorado boards are 30 inches by 30 inches. And that's what this happens to be, and you're going to divide those into 9 quarters of 10 by 10, 10 by 10, 10 by 10, just like you would in the conquest scenario. Now the other thing you would do is you would need 9 tokens or 9 things to represent the different recon points here. So I have one here for 0. These are the Gale Force 9 tokens, which are kind of cool. 2 value 1, 2 value 2, 2 value 3, and 2 value 4. And what you're going to do is you're going to secretly bid on these 9 areas of the board. So I'm just going to do this randomly as an example here. So let's say we were talking about the middle square here, and one player puts down this value, just puts down a blind value, and the other player puts this blind value down. Then during the during the reveal phase, the dominant player is going to start, and we're going to reveal all of the bids in each zone. So 2 there by the dominant player and 2 by the other player. This is interesting because when you have a tie, this becomes a conflict zone. And so what you do is you leave this area blank, and then you would play out the rules for a conflict zone, which is also cool. In the case where you have, say, one value higher than the other value, what you're going to do is then discard the lower value token for that area, and then those are the terrain points that you would spend, in this case 3, for that 10 by 10 area. So at the end of this, what you should have is you should have 9 zones with only 1 token each after all the bids have been revealed. Scouts also play a role in this. They allow you to reveal, if you decide to include your scout in your standard deployment instead of placing them later, you can actually start to reveal your opponent's bids before this whole selection goes. So scouts even give you an advantage in this. And the whole thing becomes this really cool kind of mini game for bidding for terrain, and then once all the terrain's down, then you're going to select your table edge for the scenario. I personally think it's really cool, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't had much opportunity to play it yet because our community out here is still pretty much learning the game, so we don't have people yet that are regularly playing with me that we can play the terrain rules for. I think it's a blast. I've built small bits of terrain in order to prepare for this, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that's a brief overview of how to do your terraforming if you are going to be playing terraforming rules. And again, not recommended for your first few games, but it's a very cool thing. You are absolutely going to want to check it out. It's an important part of Hell Dorado.